So do you think your situation is out of control? I mean, do you really think he could manipulate world leaders and not be able to care for your situation? It isn't out of control. God is working in all situations. So maybe you think, well, he may be working in all situations, but he doesn't care whether or not I end up being, friendly fire, succumbing to friendly fire. No. The end of the story is important. That's what Lisa shared. He shed his own blood for you and for me. He's in control, and he cares so much that he died for you and me. Therefore, this is what he says, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life. Now, having said that, I know we would love to see everything. We come to Jesus and everything's going to be sunshine and lollipops. But this is another thing that this particular gospel account shows us. Unfavorable circumstances aren't shied away from. And by the way, that point is actually the second proof that we can actually rely on this as history. Let me show you how all of this is kind of linked together. We spent most of our time in verses 1 through 5, but let's look at verses 6 and 7 now. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. Now, one of the things that comes across in Luke chapter 2, if you keep going in the story, is that this is a poor family. This is a family that really doesn't have a lot of resources. When Jesus is presented at the temple later in this account, the family had to give an offering. It was required of the firstborn. If you were well off, you could afford a lamb, and the sacrifice would be a lamb. But the poor were given an out. God, back in the Levitical law, says, no, you don't have to give a lamb if it's too expensive for you to be able to do this. I don't want this to be a hardship for you. I want you to do the right thing. And so he gives them an out, and he says, you can offer 2 doves or 2 pigeons. And that's what Joseph and Mary did, which means they were poor. But before that, even in the story, Joseph gets to Bethlehem. He doesn't have the money or the clout or the connections to get a room. Right? He doesn't have that. He didn't have the clout to even get a roof over their head and a wall or 4 walls and a door in order to keep the night away so that his wife can have a baby. And so as a result, she has her baby in a stable and puts Jesus in a feed trough, not a crib. And let's not I know all of our, nativity scenes have all of these beneficent looking animals looking on with wonder, and there's somehow a glow on everybody's face, even though they didn't have electric lights back then, and everybody's looking so cherubic. It wasn't like that. I mean, the nativity is rough. This is brutal what's happening to Jesus. The census was an inconvenience at best for this family. It's a hardship for them. It really is. Mary's pregnant. Now they've got to travel. It's 90 miles. Now you think, well, 90 miles. I can do that in, an hour and a half today. Yeah, in your car. Ever walk it? How many of you have walked 90 miles in 1 week? How many of us do that today? 5 days probably, minimum, to do that journey? With a pregnant wife, probably longer than that. So it's a hardship for them. Joseph is poor. People are crowding into the town, and Joseph's familia claim has no bearing because everybody that's crowding into the town has the exact same claim. And so there's no place for them to go. And so we see ultimately that Jesus is rejected even before Mary gives birth to him. And then, as if the hardship of travel isn't enough, the baby comes while they're there, and the best that they can do is a feed trough. Now, I don't know about you. I have watched 4 births. They are messy affairs. They really are. This isn't going to be very endearing to my wife. She'll tell me about it later. They're messy. It's hard. And then you mix into that straw and dirt and all of the things that livestock leave behind them. Yeah, that just imagine all of the stuff that comes along with having a newborn baby. All the, you got the cottage cheese and all that kind of stuff all over them, right? You know what I mean? And then it's dusty and dirty, and I'm sure Joseph really washed up before he started this whole process, right? Sure he did. I don't think I would want to participate in that kind of a birth. I mean, I would because it's my kids, but I don't want to. But this is the pattern for everything to do with Jesus. In the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of Jesus' life, it was a mess. And it's on display for us. And in fact, we get so uncomfortable with it, we try to sanitize it and make it like it's some glorious thing. We put Magi there at the birth. They weren't there for a while yet. But this is how he's going to save us. The model is in place from the very beginning, how he's going to save us. This is what he came into the world for rejection. And so he doesn't shy away from the mess. He doesn't come as a general. He doesn't come as a philosopher or a world-renowned mathematician, as though we need more of those. He doesn't come into a palace. He's rejected by the world and the processes that the world employs. That's backwards. Oh, I'm glad I get to use that. His first breaths come in a stable. Why? Because he's dealing with reality. He's dealing with the effects of a desperately wicked world. And that's reality. So whenever people encounter suffering and evil and they say, oh, if there's a God and he's powerful, why doesn't he stop this? Or if he's all loving and all good, then why doesn't he step in and do something about this? Well, the answer to those questions is the same answer as it is to these questions. Why did he come in weakness? Why did he come in a dirty stable? Because he is doing something about it. He's using common events in everyday life. He's breaking into history so that we can live, so that he could live just like we do, so that we could see how impossible it would be for us to live perfectly like he did. Christianity says that the darkness in your heart is too great. Don't try and put it at arm's length. You'll never fix it. There's no salvation for Ebenezer Scrooge unless God makes a way. And so therefore, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, broke into history because you can't save yourself, and neither can I. You have to realize that if Jesus had come to destroy all of the sources of evil on earth, if he had come as a conquering king, you do realize he would have to kill all of humanity, right? Because the evil resides here. If you think that's an unfair statement or an exaggeration, then you aren't as aware of your own heart as you think. This is how we started off the day. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 6, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. The heart is turned in on itself, says Martin Luther. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. See, Jesus Christ came to be rejected. He came to be destroyed and killed, not to be crowned. And as a result, he can identify with all of your suffering. All of it, literally all of it. He came to bear judgment, not bring it. He came to take the rejection that human self-centeredness does naturally, so that someday he can return and destroy literally all the evil of the world without destroying us. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. See, here's the truth of the New Testament. Jesus didn't come to establish a new religion. He didn't come to show you and I how to get saved. Jesus says, I've come to save you. I've come to do what you can't, even with the very best of your efforts. I've come to take the penalty for your sins and to save you from death and destruction. If he did really break into history, if God really did use regular events to bring about his plan, if he really is moving to fulfill all things, and he doesn't shy away from inconvenience or hardship or circumstances in order to get that job done, then that means the miracle of the incarnation of his birth are intimately tied, as Lisa pointed out, to the miracle of his death and resurrection as well. And therefore, these are not legends just merely to give us hope that we can someday overcome. The miracles that Jesus did, the life that he lived, his death and resurrection, particularly his death and resurrection, is what actually saves us. Events within history actually save history. And his life that was typified by inconvenience and hardship and difficulty, which prepared him for that ultimate rejection on the cross, that also is part of our salvation. Jesus Christ was rejected so that you and I could be accepted. There's no room at him for the inn so that he could prepare a place for us in eternity. That's the message of Christmas. Would you stand as we close in prayer?